The reason talking, hearing and speaking can have such a devastating effect lies in the nature of sound in general. As Srila Prabhupada writes in his purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 3:26-32, the entire material manifestation begins from sound, and sound can also end material entanglement if it has a particular potency. Our entanglement in material affairs has begun from material sound. Now we must purify that sound in spiritual understanding. On the grand cosmic scale, we know that it is sound which creates space, then matter in a gaseous form, then radiant energy, then matter in a liquid form, and finally matter in a solid form. Sound is the basis of everything. As Prabhupada writes in the above referenced third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam purport, it also on our own individual material situation, which has started from sound. Hearing and talking about mundane enjoyment or impersonal liberation are therefore not harmless, incidental diversions. Hearing and talking lead to contemplations, to attachment, and then to a life spent in pursuit of those attachments. Ultimately, what we hear about molds our destination after death. Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29-13. Furthermore, what we talk and hear about reveals the deeper attachment already within. Perhaps it's primarily for that later reason that this obstacle is first on Raghunath Das Goswami's list, which goes from gross to subtle. The ultimate symptom of what is dear to our heart, our real goal, is revealed in the speech. We may think that we aspire for pure service to the divine couple in Braj. The evidence is how much time and energy we spend hearing and talking about them and their service. Jesus also spoke about the relationship between treasure and the heart in Matthew 6:19-21 as follows. Lay not up for yourself treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up for yourself treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, and where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. To conquer the prajalpa problem, as well as the problem of deep affection for the opulent form of Narayana, we need to do active service for Radha and Krishna. And that service has to be in a servant mode, which means without any pride. The divine couple then share with us the most valuable gem of their own love. What a beautiful parallel literary ornament Raghunath Das Goswami has written. Be a false enjoyer. Lose the treasure you have. Be a real servant and gain greatest treasure possible. So from tomorrow we will be dwelling on verse number 5. So verse number 4 give us 4 instructions. Association with the non-devotees who has no inclination to render the service to the divine couple. Gramya Katha, aspiration for the different kind of mukti, salokya, swarupya, shasti, all kind of liberation. And finally, also attachment for the Lord Narayan. So these are the obstacles in our devotional life. As we will read through verse number 8, everything, subtly some impure desire in our heart will be surface out. So we will be able to be watchful. Our Acharya has given us a tremendous literature and the instructions that we should read and dwell and put into the practical life. So I'll read a couple of lines and then we will continue. We are reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, volume number 2, chapter title as Beyond the Lower East Side. Whenever he wore the glasses, this is talking about Srila Prabhupada, he seems to reveal a new personality of deep Vaishnava scholarship. This feature of Swamiji emphasizes his old age. Not that it showed him feeble or invalid, but it emphasized his scholarship and wisdom and his contemplation of the scriptures. In contrast to his vigorous drum playing in Thompson Square Park, or his alert business dealing while looking for a new building. So we will continue. Swamiji began reading and translating the story of Sanatana Goswami. Satsarup Das wrote Shuta and Umapati wrote Shonatan, and his brother Rupa, and how they became intimate associates of Lord Chaitanya. It was a historical account. Rupa and Sanatan had been born as Brahmana in India, but they have served in the government under the Muslims, who were in power at that time. The two brothers had even adopted Muslim names. But when Lord Chaitanya was touring in that part of the country, they had met him and had become determined to give up their materialistic ways and follow his path of pure love of God. Rupa, who was so rich that he had enough gold to fill 2 boats, Haribo, left his high government post, divided his wealth, become a mendicant, and join Lord Chaitanya. What a nice example. For Sanatan, however, there were more obstacles. The Nawab Shah, the chief Muslim ruler of the province of Bengal, was dependent on Sanatan's managerial expertise. But Sanatan began staying home and submitting sick reports, while actually he had employed a dozen brahmanas who were teaching him Srimad Bhagavatam. The Nawab sent his physicians to find out the actual state of Sanatan's health. And when the Nawab heard that Sanatan was not actually ill, he himself arrived one day, surprising Sanatan and the Brahmanas. The Nawab demanded that Sanatan return to his government work and leave him free to do some hunting and to leave Bengal on a military campaign. But Sanatan said that he could not, that he was now determined to study the scriptures and that the Nawab could do with him whatever he liked. Haribol. At this challenge, the Nawab imprisoned Sanatan, but they never deviated. That's the faith we require. Swamiji looked at his watch. Morning classes were shorter than those in the evening, only half an hour. And Rupanuga, Satsvarup, and Brahmananda had to go to work. He paused in his narration, quote, "So, we will discuss tomorrow," unquote. Prabhupada closed the book, and after a few informal words, he got up and left the storefront, followed by Kirtananda, who carried his book and glasses. Breakfast was served every morning in the storefront. Either Achyutanand or Kirtanand would cook an oatmeal cereal for the devotees. Satsvarup had read in an English edition of the Ramayana about some sages preparing a mystical cereal called heavenly porridge. The name had caught on, and the devotees began calling their own cereal heavenly porridge. The popular fare would consist of steaming hot heavenly porridge, sweetened to taste with sugar syrup from the gulab jamun pot, hot milk and fruit, and each devotee would get an ISKCON bullet, gulab jamun. At breakfast this morning, the talk was of Rupa and Sanatan. Umapati said the Chaitanya Charitamrita was available in an English translation, but maybe the Swamiji wouldn't want them to read it. Quote, "We will hear it from Swamiji," unquote, Kirtananda said. Hayagriva was amused at the cliffhanger ending of the class. Tune in tomorrow. He laughed loosely, and hear what happened to. What's his name? The devotee responded differently. Santan, Sonutan, Sanatan, Hayagriva. Yay! Tune in tomorrow and hear. Will Sanatan get out of jail? They were not the most sober group when together, especially after taking the thick, sweet syrup. Achyutanand spilled some of the syrup on the rug, and Kirtananda admonished him. Jadurani ate silently and hurried to begin a day's painting in Prabhupada's room. Satsvarup adjusted his tie, and he and Rupanuga and Brahmananda went to their jobs. Haribo. The next morning, Chaitanya Charitamrita seminar began with Sanatan in jail, planning how to get free to join Lord Chaitanya. His brother Rupa sent him a note saying that he had left a large sum of gold for Sanatan in the care of a grocer, and Sanatan offered the gold to the jailer as a bribe. He told him, quote, "Sir, I know you are a very learned man, and in your Quran it says that if you aid someone in going to spiritual life, then you will be elevated to the highest point. I'm going to Lord Chaitanya, and you will assist me in escaping. It will be a spiritual gain for you. Also, I will give you 500 gold coins, so it will be material gain as well." The jail keeper says, quote, "All right, but I'm afraid of the king, unquote. So Sanatan advised him, quote, just say that when I was passing stool by the river, I fell in with my chains and was washed away, unquote. For 700 gold coins, the jailer agreed to help Sanatan and sewed up the shackles. Sanatan, accompanied by his servant, then fled by the back road until by night time he came upon a hotel. Now this hotel was kept by thieves, and an astrologer at the hotel read Sanatan's palm and judged by the stars that he had money. When Sanatan asked for assistance in passing over the jungle mountains, the hotel keeper said that he would help Sanatan live in the dead of the night. They treated Sanatan with great respect, which made him suspicious, since he hadn't eaten in 3 days, Haribol, and his clothes were unclean. So he asked his servant if he had any money. The servant said yes, he had 7 gold coins. And Sanatan immediately took the money to the hotel keeper, who was already planning to kill him during the night and take his money. Very well. Even we have seen that our age has so much degraded to even get the heritage. Some people kill their relatives. I have heard, I have seen. Very well. Kirtananda, Brahmananda and Achyutanand, Gargamuni, Sarsaru, Hayagriva, Umapati, Jadurani, Rupanoga, Damodar, Dan Clark. Their lives had all been transformed. That is required. Over the months, they had transferred the center of their lives to Swamiji. And everything revolved around the routine of classes and kirtan and prasadam, and coming and going to and from the storefront. Brahmanan and Gargamuni had given up their apartment several months ago and moved into the storefront. The ceiling of Achyutanand's apartment had caved in one day, just minutes after he had left the room. And he had decided to move on to the storefront also. Hayagriva and Umapati had cleaned up their Mott Street place and were using it only for chanting, sleeping, or reading Swamiji's Bhagavatam. Satswarup had announced one day that the devotees could use his apartment just around the corner from the temple for taking showers. And the next day, Rai Ram had moved in, and the others began using the apartment as a temple annex. Jadurani kept making her early morning treks from the Bronx. In the parenthesis, Swamiji had said that he had no objections to her living in the second room of his apartment, but that people would talk, unquote, parenthesis over. Even Rupanuga and Damodar, whose backgrounds and tastes were different, were also positively dependent on the daily morning class and the evening class 3 nights a week, and in knowing that Swamiji was always there in his apartment whenever they needed him. There were, however, some threats to this security. Prabhupada would sometimes say that unless he got permanent residencies from the government, he would have to leave the country. But he had gone to a lawyer, and after the initial alarm, it seems that Swamiji would stay indefinitely. There was also the threat that he might go to San Francisco. He said he was going, but then sometime he said he wasn't. If the negotiation through Mr. Price for the building on 10th Street came through, then Swamiji said he would make his headquarters in New York City and not go to San Francisco. But at least in the morning sessions, as his disciple listened to him speak on Chaitanya Charitamrita, these threats were all put out of mind, and the timeless, intimate teaching took up their full attention. Krishna consciousness was a struggle, keeping yourself strictly following Swamiji's code against Maya. No illicit sex, no intoxication, no gambling, no meditating. But it was possible as long as they could hear him singing and reading and speaking from Chaitanya Charitamrita. They counted on his presence for their Krishna consciousness. He was the center of their newly spiritualized lives. And he was all they knew of Krishna consciousness. As long as they could keep coming and seeing him, Krishna consciousness was sure thing, as long as he was there. Seated on a worn rug, they looked up at him, waiting for him to begin the next installment. Prabhupada cleared his throat and glanced down at Brahmananda, who sat beside the silently running tape recorder. Satsarup entered the date in his notebook. Prabhupada began reading the Bengali verses and paraphrasing. Sanatan took the 7 gold coins from his servant and gave them to the hotel keeper. Quote, "You have 8 coins," unquote, the astrologer said. And Sanatan went back and found that his servant was retaining another gold coin. Astrologers was perfect, eh? Now you cannot even trust. Haribo. Quote, "Why do you carry this death knell on the road?" Unquote, Sanatan asked. Quote, "You are too attached to money," unquote. And he took the gold piece from his servant and told him to return home. Sanatan then brought the gold coin to the hotel keeper. But the hotel keeper, who admitted that he had intended to kill Sanatan for his money, now said, quote, "You are a good man and you may keep your money," unquote. But Sanatan refused. Then the hotel keeper provided Sanatan with 4 assistants. They helped Sanatan through the jungle and then left him alone. Free from his Nisan servant and from the decoys, Sanatan felt liberated as he passed along the road alone. Soon he came upon his brother-in-law, who was traveling along the same road. His brother-in-law was a wealthy man, carrying a great deal of money to buy horses. Quote, "Please stay with me at least a few days," unquote, Sanatan's brother-in-law said. Quote, "It's really bad how you look," unquote. The brother-in-law knew that Sanatan was going to spiritual life, but he requested that he improve his dress by accepting a valuable blanket from him. Sanatan took the blanket and continued on his way. At last, Sanatan reached Banaras, and he went straight to the home of Chandrasekhar, where Lord Chaitanya was staying, and waited outside the door. Lord Chaitanya knew Sanatan had arrived, and he requested Chandrasekhar to go to the door and ask the devotee who was waiting there to come in. Chandrasekhar went out but saw only the wretched looking Sanatan, whom he took to be a half-mad Mohammedan fakir. Chandrasekhar returned to Lord Chaitanya and explained that there was no devotee outside. Quote, "Was there anyone at all?" Unquote, the Lord asked. "Yes," said Chandrasekhar, "some wretched fakir." Then Lord Chaitanya went to the door and embraced Sanatan. The Lord cried tears of ecstasy, for he had at last found a devotee whom he knew was worthy to receive his entire teachings. And Sanatan cried tears of joy that his life's ambition was being fulfilled. But because he was dirty from his traveling and not worthy, he asked the Lord not to touch him. Haribol. The Lord replied, quote, "It is I who benefit from touching you. Whoever touching a true devotee is blessed." Unquote. Prabhupada closed the book, ending another morning session. Okay. One of Prabhupada's main concern was to finish and publish as soon as possible his translation and commentaries of Bhagavad Gita. And one day something happened that enabled him to increase his work on the manuscript. Unexpectedly, a boy named Neil arrived. He was a student from Antioch College on a special work study program. And he had the school approval to work one term within the ashram of Swami Bhaktivedanta, which he had heard about through the newspapers. Neil mentioned that he was a good typist, if that could be of any help to the Swami. Prabhupada considered this to be Krishna's blessings. Immediately, he rented a dictaphone and began dictating tapes, rental, not purchase. Hayagriva donated his electrical typewriter, and Neil set up his work area in Swami's front room and began typing 8 hours a day. This inspired Prabhupada and applied him to produce more. He worked quickly, sometime day and night, on the Bhagavad Gita as it is. He had founded ISKCON 5 months ago. Yet in his classes, he was still reading the Bhagavad Gita translation of Dr. Radhakrishnan. But when Bhagavad Gita as it is would at last be published, he told his disciple it would be of major importance for the Krishna consciousness movement. At last, there would be a bona fide editions of the Bhagavad. Excuse me. Got 3 hiccups. I don't know what does it mean. Whatever Swamiji said or did, his disciple wanted to hear about it. Gradually, they had increased their faith and devotion to Swamiji. This is required to make advancement. Faith is so important in our life. Faith can turn everything around. Whom they accepted as God's representative, and they took his actions and words to be absolute. After one of the disciples had been alone with him, the others would gather around to find out every detail of what had happened. It was Krishna consciousness. Jadurani was especially guileless in relating what Swamiji had said or done. One day, Prabhupada had stepped on a tack that Jadurani had dropped on the floor. And although she knew it, it was a serious offense to her spiritual master. The major importance of the event seems to be how Prabhupada had displayed his transcendental consciousness. He silently and emotionlessly reached down and pulled the tack from his foot without so much as a cry. And once, when she was fixing a painting over his head behind the desk, she had accidentally stepped on his sitting mat. Is that an offense? She had asked. And Swamiji has replied, no. For service, you could even stand on my head. What a wonderful instructions that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given to Govinda Das to cross over his body. So if for service to the Lord and Guru, we can deviate the regulative principles, no problem, but not for any other cause. So this is wonderful instructions. Because if we remain just ritualistic, no, I have to follow the instruction of my spiritual master, then we will make a havoc in our life. I think I have spoke about that incident earlier, that there was a guru and a disciple, and guru was riding on a horse, and he instructed the disciple that you please walk behind the horse, and if you see something falling down, please collect it and give it to me. Now the spiritual master was thinking about his own paraphernalia or whatever he was carrying. But the disciple took it as like a line on the stone. So when the horse passed the stool, disciple collected the stool and give it to the spiritual master. So this lesson teaches that it's not that we have to follow rigidly what our spiritual master say, but we have to know the inner meaning, what the desire of the spiritual master we have to dwell, not just blindly do, because sometimes it had happened. When Guru gives the instruction, it doesn't become clear to us. So what should we do? We should clarify. I have so many times, that my English was not even good, now also not good, but at that time was even much more bad. And sometimes Gurudev used those words that I don't know what the meaning is. And even in the sentence, one word that you don't know, the meaning of it, you have not understood. And I used to tell Gurudev that use simple English with me. And Gurudev was very kind. He will speak to me in a simple English language. So if we are not understanding of our understanding is not correct, or if you have some doubt that what did I listen is correct or not, it's always good to ask. And they are so kind that they will even reveal more to you, because then they see, look at this devotee, how sincerely he is hearing. Most of the time we don't hear what only we think we hear is what we want to hear. As I said, that everybody has the filter. The speaker speak the same message, but the listeners get different messages. Why? Because of their consciousness not tuning with the instructions. So what can be done? So I will stop here. I think we have gone a little more. The devotees has to go and do the other activities of the day. So I'd like to thank them for joining. And I have no word of appreciating your association. And if Krishna so desire, we will continue to have that association as long as Krishna desire. So before we leave, I would like to offer my humble obeisances at the desk of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis feet. Vanchakalpatarubhasya Kripasindhubhayavacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you very much. If anybody has any question, comment, corrections, or